Yeah, 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 ay, 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 yeah, 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 ay, yeah, 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 ay, like, look, I was raised on the North End for a couple years. They say my mama lost it, so my grandma took a sin. It was me and my two brothers and my older cousin kids.
My mother, Reverend Bertha Carter, actually encouraged me and my husband to come over to the North End and start working at the nonprofit because it was important for Reverend Carter to know what was going on in the neighborhood. One of the concerns that she had was that members of churches come into worship and then they would leave at the end of the service on Sunday and go home without talking to people, without trying to figure out what the needs were or anything like that. So having been a pastor in this community for many years, she saw the decline. She saw people walking around the neighborhood would seem like they had no sense of purpose, and it was troubling to her. So she asked me and my husband if we would come over and see what's going on so that we can figure out what to do.
Well, we came from a family of educators, so we always believed in higher education. Those were the forefront thoughts that we had, that we want our children to have a good education because we knew that was what moved people forward to advance in life. And so each move I think that we made, we were seeking better venues for educational purposes or opportunities. So I think that's why we moved from Black Bottom to North End to Northwest, because we felt that we were moving around like-minded people, you know, people that wanted high education for their children and good homes and good communities where they could play and be safe and walk back and forth to the schools and the communities, which they did. So, yeah, that's what we were seeking. Communities, safe communities, where our children could learn and be safe and get an education.
Okay.
I was welcomed into the North End. Makiba and son, Roshan Foster, were like, yo, we're having a set, I want you to come meet some people. And those people just kept reoccurring in my life in different spots, even like Gabby. It's like, I didn't say we're going to meet over at this point, but the next thing you know, we're sitting together at a table again. Like, oh yeah, okay. It's been like a yellow brick road, you know what I mean? My background in technology was actually requested by Ulysses Newkirk. He had heard we had done something over on the west side with our project Ecosphere. He was like, well man, I hope one day we can get the North End wired up and get them or wireless and use what you did over there at your block over here with us. So he kind of cast that a few years back, and it just kind of worked out back on the yellow brick road that we're doing some work that involves wiring or actually creating wireless connections in the North End. So it's magical in its own thing. So I'm just kind of, again, following the yellow brick road. You know what I mean? Like, how you get here? What's your reasoning? I mean, that's what I can give you, that I'm here. Like, okay, what can I do while I'm here? What part can I add to the block since I'm here?
And so there's several reasons. One, we wanted to make sure that we were locating in a community where there was an actual need. So there were some other communities that were trying to get us to locate our food co-op in those communities, which were maybe higher income communities, but the people there already had lots of choices where they could get healthy food. So we wanted to make sure that we're actually serving a need and not just looking at it as a business in the traditional sense, just looking at where the most money is that people have to spend. So that's one thing, because the North End is predominantly low and moderate income residents. The other thing is that there are no grocery stores in the North End. There's one store, King Cole, on Woodward and Claremont, which is just right outside of the North End. And I haven't been in there in many years, but from people who have been in there recently, they tell me it's not the highest quality food. And so there's a need for more opportunities for people to get fresh, healthy food in the North End. And the other reason is because it's centrally located. The North End is almost centrally located between the east and the west sides of the city, and it's centrally located between the downtown and the northern border of the city. So it's accessible to a lot of different people from all over the city. You have I-75 on one side, you have the Lodge Freeway on the other, then you get East Grand Boulevard, and then you have Woodward Avenue. So you have all these main thoroughfares that people are able to use to get to the North End. So it's easily accessible. There's a need in the community. There's the income level that we were looking for, and it's a predominantly black and a historically black community.
Okay. So when I landed here, like I started with going, even just on this block, you know, having a home is a big thing. You know, I started just going and knocking on people's doors just to introduce myself, let them know I was gonna be making noise and doing some weird shit, you know. So I think that attitude is why North End is still feels like a big village, you know, still feel like a big old home. Friends over here, friends over there. And I want to keep that attitude, so that's how I came in, you know. So I'm collecting people. It's people that I have a lot that I can give to the North End, you know. And I'm working with people and getting the resources I need, you know, sharing them.
Right.
Well, I've lived on the North End all my life. I mean, it's the first house I ever lived on. I was on Delmar Street. And I might as well say, hey, they brought me here. My family brought me here when I was born to the North End. So I was raised on the North End. I went to school on the North End. I went to elementary school, junior high school, and also high school right here on the North End.
Jerry. I went to a meeting at the church, was it 2 years? 2 years ago. And I heard all these crazy things, and so I'm to the extreme left. I said, well, it sounds crazy enough to be okay, so I'm on board. So that's why I'm here.
It was the Michigan Urban Farming Initiative. I was a volunteer for the farm, and when I discovered that, like, what kind of houses you had in the neighborhood and what the potential was, I fell in love.
I was born here. I was born right there on Delmar, 9064 Delmar, 21 in Holbrook. And I've been here ever since. That's all I know is the North End.
And my best friend, Alexis Braxton Wallace, who has been my friend for 30 years, she had known of my suffering. And not just the suffering of the foreclosure, but I was also in the middle of what I call my biblical Job moment. And she trusted me with her life, and her life being this house. The significance about this house, too, is that her great-grandparents bought the house, the Henrys. So they bought the house somewhere, she said maybe in the 30s or the 40s. So we're talking about 5 generations of her family having lived here, including her. And then her granddaughter being the 6th generation.
Yeah, I don't know why you call it the North End.
That's just what they call it, the North End.
Is that where we lived?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it was north, and it was the kind of the end. I don't know if the
true.
end.
Claremont was
the end.
Yeah, that's North End.
It was a black neighborhood. It was a Jew and black neighborhood, and man, I don't know. So my brain clicking. It was a Jew and black neighborhood, and we basically flourished over here and in Black Bottom, which was basically connected together until the freeway came through and wiped us out.
This house where we are now at 531 Belmont has been in my family since 1942. Okay. And this house was used by Moses and Etta Stafford to bring back families from down south during what they call the Great Migration. And the Great Migration was people in the South who were looking for opportunities to move north and get a job in the auto factory. So in the 30s and 40s and 50s, auto factory was where people could make a good living. So Mr. Stafford, he went down in 1950 and brought my parents back. My mother was a teenager, 18 years old. And what they would do was they would give families a place to live here at this house. And they didn't call it transitional housing. That's what we call it now, transitional. But so 1950, my parents came here, and whole families lived in the rooms in the house. And my family lived in a room in this house, and I was born in 1952, right in this house.
Okay, so you've been with me your whole life.
So I've been connected to my entire life.
Oh.
Somebody came to me, a real estate developer came to me and said he saw me in his dream. Well, I thought sure it was nothing more than just a sales pitch. But for some reason I believed him. I really believed him. That he saw me in the dream and he said God told him to tell me he wanted me to see this church. And so I took him at his word. I really believed him. And to make a long story short, when I came here, you know, I forget exactly what year it is. I'll find out for you. But I knew then that it was what I really, more than what I ever thought it would be, all that I deserved. And so they wanted 1.1 million for the church, the Christian discipleship. They had the place, and they had built a church in Troy, and they were selling because of the transition of the community. And I just knew it was beyond the number was beyond our capabilities. And so, but I loved what they were saying. They showed me the place, and so I went back and I prayed again, and I asked God, "Now, if you really want, you know, we can't afford 1.1 million, but if you can get it down to 500,000, I really feel like that's something that it'll be a struggle, but it's something that I think that we can handle." And so I prayed about it, asked him to do that, and that it would be like a fleece. It would be like a sign. If they move it to 500,000, they would basically tell me that's what. When I got here, they had a meeting. My meeting was at 11. They had a meeting at 9. And so when I got here and to meet, they said, "Brother, we had a meeting, and what we decided to do is sell you the church for 380,000."
Wow! Oh my God!
So that was like, you know, God telling me that. He not only wanted me here, but he really wanted me here.
Right.
I'm an outsider. I'm from Paris, from France. And I moved in Michigan 8 years ago. And started working as designer and architect with my partner, Anya Sirota. And we have a small design firm. And when we start to be in Detroit, we feel like, you know, we need to figure out a way to have design and architecture have social impact.
Well, I've been living here ever since I came from Alabama, 42 years. And I like it, North End, got a job, and been here ever since.
When I first got here, the place that I came to was Highland Park. Which is just north of North End. But when I finally did start coming over here more often, I found that there was an energy here that made me want to participate more in what was going on in the neighborhood, and couple that with the fact that people let me. You know, sometimes you can go places and people don't want to let you. But they let me participate, so it made me feel like I could be part of something.
You know, Detroit went through some very, very tough times. I think tougher than any other city in the country. It's devastated. It was devastated from the inside out. You know, And the governments that they had during those years, they left a lot to be desired.
They what?
So, huh?
What'd you say?
The governments of Detroit left a lot to be desired.
Oh. Oakland Avenue had all kinds of stores, little workshop, any kind of little shop or whatever. You could almost find anything you needed on Oakland Avenue.
Well, I've seen a decline in the North End. It's very bad decline over here on the North End. It was really vibrant when I first got here, flourishing. But then after 67, everything started downhill after that. So we haven't done a whole lot of improvement since then.
Well, the biggest change is that this was an affluent area of town, meaning people felt like they were more upper class than middle class. They were people who had means, they had a little bit of money, and they had good jobs or good professions. And this neighborhood was known for music. And so in the middle of my block, Smokey Robinson grew up, and his family did the same thing that our family did. They did transitional housing for people. And Smokey Robinson was a little boy, and Diana Ross was the girl who grew up here. And on the next street over was Boston, and that's where Aretha Franklin grew up. And so the people were connected to either the music industry or, they had some family wealth.
It was in transition, but Oakland in particular, that's where I got my hair cut. I got my shoes shined.
Where'd you get your shoes shined?
It was called Red's Shoe Shop. and just loved going down there. It was a community kind of thing where people sit down and talk, and you learned everything. And the old guys would sit there and try to figure out how to handle the world's problems, that kind of a thing. It was always a wonderful experience. And then the barber shop, and then the food. We had a lot of hair places. It was a beautiful. We had Phelps Lounge. Just go on and on and on in terms of ownership. Blacks really had ownership, and many homes were owned as well by the African American community. So that was going on when I came here in 1979.
It's empty. Our folks no longer captures the neighborhood anymore. It's more of a mixed culture now.
I can remember back before the '67 riot, when Oakland was a real thriving business district. I often look at this corner right here, and I remember when Westminster, was a thriving business district between Oakland and Russell. We had fish markets right on the corner here of Oakland and Westminster on that northeast corner. Side of Hardware. We had a fresh fish market, in between Cameron and Cardone. That basically provided this neighborhood with all the fresh fish, that was consumed.
Well, when I moved back to the North End, Oakland Avenue had really changed, because in growing up as a child, there was dime stores, shoe stores, furniture stores all up and down the block. Plenty of black businesses and restaurants, and also Jewish businesses. Everybody, like I said, everybody was kind of looking out for each other. And then after coming back, a lot of things had changed. The stores was gone. It was a lot of vacant land, empty fields, and that type of thing. So it was kind of depressing for a while.
It was nice. Oakland looked like downtown at one time. Yes, it did.
It was more housing, Now, you know, where the vacant lots at, it was plays you can go see B.B. King, Bobby Bland, them at on Oakland Avenue.
Again, it was a real thriving business avenue. You know, it was I remember the Oakland Avenue Express restaurant that sat right there in between Leicester and Kenilworth. You know, it was just anything that we needed to survive in the community could be got on Oakland Avenue. You know, I mean, we didn't have to, you know, as a child, I considered going downtown, you know, to be a field trip. You know, and most of the time it was unnecessary. It was just because, you know, my parents wanted me to venture out and see more than just what existed within our community. But to be truthful, anything that we needed could be got on Oakland Avenue.
I wish that there were the retail stores, you know, the commercial district. I wish that they come back and that they'll be affordable.
Okay.
And that they be relevant.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I remember hearing about, there was a lot of bars around here.
Yeah.
So I'm fine. Well, I don't feel like being around a bunch of bars.
Yeah.
But that, you know, I wish that there was a sundry store, 5 and Dime up the street, up the corner. Like there were just maybe a few months ago, they just tore down the grocery store that was at the end of the block. But if you go down, you know, and even not just the main streets, Oakland Avenue, but you can go down any of these little side streets in the interior residential blocks, and you can see that there used to be like grocery stores on the corners. Like, oh my God, I would love to just go down the street and get anything, right? Toilet paper. Oh my God, why do I have to go like 2 miles that way and 2 miles into Hamtramck to get a roll, you know, get a package of toilet paper? Why is there not something like right here?
So again, what's different is that most of the stores that we see in our community are owned by people other than ourselves. They're owned by people who typically don't live in Detroit, and they take the profits they make at those stores and they suck them out of our community and take them back to wherever they live. And so we don't see any creation of jobs from that, or we don't see much creation of jobs from it, I'll say, to be fair. We certainly don't see any community ownership. Only thing we get to do is go to the store and shop and buy our money. So we want to really encourage black people to be more than just consumers, but we want to learn how to be producers and owners. And so a co-op is a store where community members can actually own it, rather than somebody from the outside coming in, setting up shop, and just extracting profits from the community.
Okay. And
what I would like to see, you know, I go to Pittsburgh, and I go to the Jewish neighborhood, and the Jewish neighborhood in Pittsburgh, for an example, hasn't changed in 100 years. You can go to Squirrel Hill and see all the old Jewish houses. Jews still live there. You know, you go to Cleveland. There are certain areas. You know, in Detroit, it's gone. There is no past. I lived in 3 different houses in Detroit, and they're all 3 of them are gone.
I remember 10233 Goodwin.
Where? Goodwin. Oh, that's an old neighborhood.
Changes in the North End. I'd like to see, which I'm starting to see, a lot of the blight removed, safer neighborhoods, more training for those people who are staying in the North End to be able to get these technology jobs so we can have higher paid households in the North End. I'd like to see the community come together, places where we can meet and talk and communicate, and people can meet their neighbors, and we can be a community, try to bring the community back. I'd like to see better streets for our kids to walk down. I'd like to see more businesses coming in, incubation to allow for more jobs, more people to stay closer to home and work closer to home along the corridors, Woodward, West Grand Boulevard, Oakland, even John R. and Brush, to have more businesses coming into our community so that we can work in our communities.
In the future, I'd like to see the community build back up, you know, affordable housing, children being raised in that community, and affordable entrepreneurship for many people, because you know, that's a through fairway from Detroit, and it connects with other cities, you know, going north. So I would love to see that community rise again and be viable as it was in 1960 when I moved over there. Because almost anything you needed, you could go out on Oakland Avenue and you could find it.
I would love to see them come in and clear out the lots that are overgrown with trees and bushes and undergrowth and everything. So when kids walk down the street, you don't have to be fearful that somebody may be lurking around to harm them in some way. Because we have a playground right at the end of the dump site down there, and the kids come through here walking sometimes, but I'd be fearful of them and for myself because of the overgrown trees. The whole lot have overgrown and they don't clear it up, and they half cut the grass, and they do cut. They don't do it well on this street.
Okay. And what about Oakland Avenue? What was it like when you first moved here?
It was full. Everybody was there. Stores was there, drug stores, you know, all of the things, necessity things that you would need were on Oakland Avenue and Westminster. And then you had your markets, supermarkets, fish market, clothing stores, shoe stores, restaurants, and everything up and down Oakland as well. We had some of everything that we needed was right here on the north end. People were coming from north, south, east, and west to Westminster because we had a lot of stuff going on there.
And what would you like to see on Oakland Avenue?
I would like to see them rebuild it and have some more of that, where we don't have to go to the suburbs to get out.
Again, understand, we have 300 prisoners, prisoners are coming to Detroit every month. 300. We got 300,
so those are returning citizens.
And if we don't know anything about them, we don't give them no job, we don't give them no training, they're gonna go right back.
Right.
They're gonna be returning to the return.
Right. Right.
So these are the kind of programs that we're going to do with that to distribute, because again, you got in Detroit you have like a 43% literacy rate, and I don't say that because I'm proud. I'm just saying because of reality. But you can expect many of the people who are unemployed to go to, you know, they just got to use their hands.
Right.
They got good minds.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to do, is basically try to do things to cause jobs for people to be trained to use their hands, like repackaging.
Right.
Right. It doesn't take a PhD to repack.
Exactly.
And so those are the things that we feel like that we're on the verge of doing, and for the North End.
I would like to see, I'm one of those, I'm a big kid, so for me, I want to see everybody play together and have fun together and bring more joy. I think we're so serious in life that we don't really recognize how much fun and joy is important too. And so we create those things by playing. If we play together and we play fair, then everybody wins. So setting up win-win situations is always a good thing, and we can do that when we stop putting ourselves, being selfish, and recognize how it's important for us to bridge. None of us can do anything without another person. We talk about being independent, but we're really interdependent.
But you know, the thing about it is, I always look at things as not from a crisis standpoint. I think the Chinese word for crisis is opportunity. The same word that we use for crisis, The Chinese use the same word for opportunities. And so and I felt like one of the reasons why we were here and was because it was to really to help, to really, because I've always been involved in community. Always.
I always feel like I'm in the front line on all these issues. All those issues are coming of the way this country is run and the way relationship has been established for years and decades between the people. And I'm totally outside of that, and I'm looking as an observer and try to figure out. I don't see any right or wrong. If you want, it's like I'm just trying to be very practical and professional and look at the situation and try to have the most justice from our work and find a way that all this front line about race, about economical struggle, about cultural preservation. I'm trying to do my best to work on the best way for this kind of issue, yes.
I would like to see more activities for youth so they can just be more involved in the community. Yeah.
More job opportunities in the youth, for the youth.
More a community center. It's no community center in North End, not that I know of. Is there? No community
and like a place for the youth to have like a voice to actually give their opinion of what they want.
A mentoring program. I guess that could be in the community center, but a lot of kids don't have anybody to talk to really, because either their parents are at work or their parents are not able to talk to them. So I feel like a mentoring program would be nice.
Like a medical.
Oh yeah, medical.
Yeah, because you know a lot of people don't in the North End. It's probably hard to get transportation to go different places. And with us being like an outsider of Detroit, not too many people looking at us as what we need.
You know, some of the most beautiful minds, these young people. I got maybe about 3 of them in my church, 300 of them in my church. This is beautiful minds. But nobody's turning around and teaching them. Nobody's taking time out to really give them opportunities. Just because a guy's pants is hanging down beyond his waist, don't turn him off. Right. It's not the pants, it's what's in his head. Right. You know what I mean? And so the old folks have all kinds of idiosyncrasies that we operate out of that we fail to really to engage these young people.
Well, I would like to see housing restored to the glory that it was. When you look at a place like this porch, which is more like a southern veranda, people would have parties and there would be 20, 30 people out on the porches and they enjoyed the whole landscape. And what I would like to see is people be connected like they were in the past, in a way where neighbors, they know each other and neighbors look out for each other, and all the children, you know, everybody in the neighborhood knew every child and they would look out for them.
Oh, I would like to see North End really build back up like it used to be. It was a nice place on Oakland, West Memphis and all that. They had a whole lot of things that you can go to. When all this stuff that's going on now, so I would like to see all that change.
I like to see it open back up to businesses, and I like to see it flourish like it once did.
I would like to see people that don't have the money to fix up their houses, some kind of help to help them, because sometimes what happens when the neighborhood changes and you're there, the money coming in changes, but the people are there, their money doesn't change.
More buildings, more houses, you know, somewhere so people can stay. Laundromats, cleaners, grocery stores. You know what I'm saying? Things that people need around. Ain't nothing around here.
Nothing.
That people need.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's not nothing around here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they ban all they doing is making parking lots.
Yeah.
That there needs to be more places for us to gather, like a coffee house, a tea house, or something like that. We do have stuff in Thai now. Again, there just needs to be more and more variety, but it needs to be more of us, something that suits us and our culture and our style and our social and economic what we have in our pockets. If I got $1, I would at least like to go up the street. I don't want to, you know.
Yeah. Beautification of the facade of the buildings. I think more flowers. I think flowers make people happy. You know, I think the cleanliness have improved 100%, you know, in the last year. So I think when people see flowers, landscape, and it makes them feel good about their environment. And I think that encourages a positive attitude too.
Yes.
Because now you part. It's not like you're one entity. You know, it's like your community it's like your extended family.
I would like to see folks come back together again. I would like to see more housing. I would just like to see everybody just happy again.
I've only been here. I've been here. It'll be 3 years next month in October. And in that time, during that time, all of the most interesting conversations I've had were usually with people that I met through this place.
Yeah, I think there has been, some political issues in the North End. I think, some new groups are coming in and maybe they're not presenting their goals in the right way. No, I like the neighborhood. There's nothing that I dislike.
That's good.
I mean, it's like night and day. When I came over, there were no street lights on Oakland. None.
When I came back 2 years ago, my overall view was afraid. It was just scary to me. Even though we stayed connected to this house for the last 10 years, we did transitional housing and we had people living here, so we had to come back and forth here. But living here was frightening because the dynamics have changed. So we've got 3 or 4 drug houses, open and obvious drug houses, operating right on the street. We had, all kinds of crime and so that was scary. And so I would say just in the past 2 years since I've been here, the fear is gone. I'm not afraid of my neighborhood anymore. The people it's becoming more blended. We have more diversity and all kinds of people have moved here just on this street and all throughout the North End, but I've just watched the diversity coming in. So we've got blended neighborhoods again, Yeah.
I've seen what has happened at the Oakland Avenue Urban Farm, and it's just phenomenal, the growth that Jerry and Billy and everyone who's involved with that. Because I remember when I was walking through the community for the first time when I moved in here. And like I said, I didn't know where I was, so I wanted to connect, And I walked over there. I don't know what pathway I took, but I walked up there and I was like, well, there's something going on around here. And I saw the sunflower sculpture that Keith Parker did. And it just brightened my day because I had walked through all of the houses that were torn down, burnt down, windows and doors, just open. And grasses everywhere. But I got to the garden, to the farm, and I was like, okay, there's something magical happening over here. And I actually documented, I took some pictures. And I wrote in the caption, it is posted on Facebook, that there should be, I was seeing yoga and meditation and art and poetry and dance. Mm-hmm. And then in 2013, like June, July 2013, I went up to Vanguard and I met Natasha Tallman there. Mm-hmm. And she handed me a flyer. She said, "Are you a poet?" And I laughed. I said, "Well, some people think I am." So she invited me to the meeting that they were having at the community house at the front. So I was like, okay, it's done, whatever's needed. So that meeting was the planning of the community, the North End Urban Expressions, which I said there was healing going on, so we collectively subtitled it The Healing. Okay. And what was it planning? Yoga, meditation, dance, poetry, and music in the garden, in the urban farm. So just those kinds of things, it's magical to me.
Beforehand, you could always, neighbors looked out for each other. People began to kind of, like they were kind of scared of each other. So that was a change. And then, after moving away and coming back, I saw that a lot of the stores were gone, the schools were gone. There wasn't as many children living in the area anymore. A lot of people had moved away. I guess after the riot or rebellion, they had moved away, and the North End was just not the same anymore.
You know, it's real heartening, you know, to see how this neighborhood has really diminished, you know, because a lot of the business were predominantly black. They were like predominantly black and Jewish owned, you know, so it was more or less like our own little society, a city within a city, you know, because everything that we basically needed within the North End could be bought and got right here within the community itself, you know.
Over the years, I've seen a lot of changes, and growing up on the North End, it was always plenty of houses, plenty of kids. The schools was always full. Everybody just loved each other. And then as time went on, I saw the North End change after, I would say, after the riot of '67, I saw the North End starting to really change.
The stores disappeared, the house is gone, you know, a lot of the neighbors gone.
I'm a visionary, so I can see things and most people can't see. You know, because in every building just has 4 walls. So I was always raised that. So whatever you put it in that space, you can go from there.
The effects of companies moving out of Detroit or moving out of this particular area, knowing that the freeways and the rebellion and substance abuse and just everything, just converging, on the North End, and why it ended up being the dilapidated houses that they are. So that was an eye opener. It was heartbreaking to see.
I remember the apartment buildings on each corner, the storefront Bunky's, Eli's. It used to be Mahalia Jackson's at first. Then you had the little Chinese place on the side. Oh, yeah, I can tell you. We had Brooks Shoe Shine right there. They used to fix shoes too, repair shoes. You had the pool room. You had Oakland Express. It was a restaurant. I can go.
Oh, okay.
Don't mess with me.
We ain't rushing you. We ain't rushing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The riots changed Detroit drastically.
Big time.
We had at that time. When did Young come in?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. Young, Coleman Young. When did he become mayor?
But the idea is that when people in Detroit who lived there all their lives realized that that Coleman Young's philosophy was going to take over, that's when we started the Exodus.
Okay.
And 1967 was the beginning of the exodus.
Well, Coleman's statement was, move out.
Yeah.
Go to the other side of
8 Mile Road.
8 Mile Road.
Right. He says, I want to, he invited the white people to go on the other side of 8 Mile Road.
Hmm.
He wanted a black community, a black city. Got very close, very close.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the whites said, hey, you know what? We're not going to fight it.
I don't know. I guess it just, basically when that riot came through, we lost a lot of things and a lot of business and stuff like that. When that riot came back in '67, I remember the riot. I wasn't before, but I remember it. Oh. But yeah, when that riot came, they messed up a lot of stuff around here, and did nobody ever rebuild nothing.
Basically, the '67 riots was really the beginning of the demise of Oakland Avenue, man, because, a lot of businesses were destroyed. And again, like I say, majority of them were Jewish owned, but the few that were black owned, the proprietors didn't have the money, to rebuild, and so a lot of times, because their main purpose was to keep the community flowing, and they didn't have the profits. They wasn't making enormous profits, to buy insurance and so forth, and so when that riot hit, they basically, it came down to either they continue to take care of their family or they rebuild their businesses. And most of them did, as myself probably would do, and that was continue to take care of my family. Well, because, again, General Motors and Chrysler and Ford was hiring at an all-time rate, so, you basically could go into one job and not like it. You basically go to Ford and get a job today and not like the job, and go to General Motors tomorrow and get another job. So, that's how most of them, they left being entrepreneurs and went to being, laborers,
Can you explain how living and working in the North End affected you and your family?
Wow, I guess living and working in the North End basically created a sense of unity, within me and my family. Again, like I say, I can remember early on as a young child, how the North End was basically, one big family. So it created a sense of unity that I don't think otherwise would exist. I mean, we didn't have to, again, lead the community for too much of anything. So that kind of made us reliant upon one another. And anytime I'm relying on you, and vice versa, a sense of connection and a unity is a bonding is made,
Okay. Yeah. Do you still live in the North End?
Oh wow, it was just bustling with businesses. Even as a little girl, we would go to Oakland Avenue to buy food, like all the, black-owned restaurants, because when I was coming up, in the 50s and in the 60s, more blacks owned their own businesses than they do now. And so on Oakland Avenue, there were lots of businesses that were owned by our own people. So if we wanted to go to a restaurant, we wanted to get shrimp, or we wanted to get some hot tamales or something, we would go from Hamtramck and come to Oakland Avenue. But there were lots of nightclubs and entertainment, and all the world-famous entertainers came to the different clubs on Oakland Avenue to perform.
Are there any changes that you would like to see in the future?
For the North, oh, of course, yeah, I would like to see, you know, some of small businesses be reestablished within the community. You know, I can remember I used to go to Alger, which was on Kenilworth, and on Westminster and John I. That right there on the corner, that house was there was a beauty salon upstairs, and you could go down John R. and walk down John R. and right around the corner, went down in the basement, there was a woman's boutique. So you know, basically a woman within the neighborhood, she could get her hair done upstairs and go downstairs and get her outfit, her clothing, you know. So, you know, we were more or less a self-supporting community, you know, and I would like to see that, you know, that aspect, you know, return to the neighborhood.
Okay.
There were barber shops, there were beauty shops, there were other kind of little shops. There was a fish market right on Westminster there, right around the corner. We used to go there and buy corned beef and fish and everything. That was a viable place, and a lot of people came from other places there to buy. I remember my niece was an educator. She was a teacher, and she used to come by my house after school, pick me up. We would go there and get a corned beef sandwich, and then we'd go shopping from there. So I have many memories about the North End there, Oakland Avenue there, you know, just beautiful memories.
But the onset of the riots of '67 kind of changed the mentality within the community itself, man. You know, it seemed like, I don't know, I guess, you know, really as people, you know, we weren't quite understanding enough to know the harm that we would cause in our own community, you know, in that uprising, you know.
I would not consider moving out of the North End because I spent a lot of time, money, and effort to make this house livable, and I'm attached to the neighborhood and to the house.
Okay. Yeah, I don't plan on leaving. If I leave, I'm just going on vacation for 3-6 months, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is home.
I'm trying to think. When did we move out of Oakland Avenue? We moved from Oakland. We moved to Westminster.
Yeah, we were neighbors. That was the next block.
You were on Kniff.
Don't want to. I wouldn't want to move, but I would like to be improved. You know, I would love to improve this area because there's a lot of ground around me that I've been trying to get, but I've been unable to purchase it because they said that I had enough, that I didn't need anymore.
I held property on the North End up until I think I was about age 35, you know, and because of financial situations, I sold that property, you know. I regret that today, but, you know, again, I had young children and they had needs that had to be met.
Yes, most definitely. I surely would.
And where would that be?
It'll be down at what would it be? I'll tell you in 1 second.
I guess sort of what we've been saying, the village,
the building vibe, you know. Everything I need is in the same neighborhood, you know. Like in the same token, I ain't really gotta travel because everything I need is in the same neighborhood. I work in the North End. I can eat its vegetables in the North End, you know, multiple gardens in the North End, friends in the North End, fun in the North End, you know what I'm saying? Everything I need is right here, so.
One, the first thing on the most basic level is it's going to beautify what is now just a vacant lot. And so we're going to put a beautiful new building there. That's one thing. The other thing is it's going to create jobs for people in the immediate community. It's going to create ownership opportunities for people in the immediate community. It's going to provide greater access to high quality food for people in the community. And it's going to be an opportunity for people such as the Oakland Avenue Farm who are growing high quality food to have another retail outlet to sell that food in. And so it's going to help to incubate new businesses, and it's going to help support existing food businesses. The other thing is in this building, besides for the grocery store co-op, we're going to have an incubator kitchen, a kitchen with 4 workstations where people who are preparing things like cakes and pies and Afro jams and things like, y'all know about Afro jam?
Yes.
You know about that? Okay, things like that, where they'll have a licensed environment to prepare that in, and they can sell those things at a retail level. So we're trying to use the facility as a way of creating more new businesses, because what we're dedicated to is Black people, again, not just being consumers, but being producers and owners. And so this is going to catalyze more people to be able to be business owners and to be able to put products in retail stores.
I love the vibe of the North End. I love the people in the North End. I love the history of the North End, the music history of the North End, the legacy of the North End. Many of the folks that live here at one time lived in Black Bottom. I lived in Black Bottom. And so it's homey to me.
The North End was the first Jewish settlement in the city of Detroit. So this neighborhood was owned and occupied by Jews who decided when they were ready to move their neighborhood, they sold houses to blacks when it was illegal for blacks to own houses in a neighborhood like this. And in the deed itself that transferred the property, there was what is called a restrictive covenant. You are forbidden to sell to a black. But the Jews did it anyway because they felt the connection between their persecution and our persecution as a people. And so they felt that we're going to help the black community, and they did that. As they moved their community, blacks were able to follow the Jewish community and become homeowners when no other communities and suburbs would sell their homes to a black person. The blacks followed the Jews to the west side, to Oak Park, to Southfield, and to West Bloomfield, all the way getting the houses, you know, through them. So that was real important. That's the reason that we have a strong, large home ownership in this. The largest home ownership in the city of Detroit is in the North End.
And I think it should be restored because it's really is a, what do you call it, historical spot, because everybody, you can go west, you can go east, north or south, everybody talk, you can mention that you live in the North End. Oh, I used to live over there, I once lived over there, my parents lived over there, my aunt, my cousin, somebody lived over the North End. The North End has been a great place for people to live.
It's the people that we meet from all over the world, from all over this city, are so interesting, so friendly, so engaging, and I learn something every day. And I just thank God every day that I'm able to get up and come into this environment.
Well, you know, Detroit is the most important city, one of the most important cities in the last 150 years, because Detroit has been the influence of so many layers, the way now we live everywhere in the world. And I would like to have everybody coming, bring the support for the Detroiters and live, go back to their place and understand how difficult, challenging, and exciting in the same time can be to be part of this city and part of this culture.
I don't have no worries. I don't have no worries because the popo is in and out all the time. And I'm well established over here, and not saying it won't happen, but no one's going to mess with me.
I love so much about it. Like I said, it's just really the cohesiveness. I'm a wordsmith by trade, and a writer and story sharer. So words are important to me, and the word community is not just a noun. It's not a thing. Community, I break it down, come into unity, come to unify. So that's the thing that I love about it. There's so many different, like pockets and such an intersectionality, I could say, of the different types of people that live in the North End. And that's the love that exists, the history that's here. Like, you can walk down the street and even though, there's some dilapidation in the area, there's still a feeling of love, and the ground, the earth has an urgency to grow and to transform.
I think I like the combination of the green spaces and the historical architecture and the wildlife. Looking out the window and seeing a pheasant and all the cats.
I got some real fond memories of growing up in North End because, we basically operated as really one big family, The
farm here. I was walking down Oakland, and Jerry introduced herself to me and told me about the vision that the church and she had for the North End, and involved me, and I said, okay, well, I'll volunteer for a short time. But after seeing the growth, I just stayed with it. I just kept on coming back. Every year I would say, well, hey, okay, that's enough, I'm retired. But every year I could see myself getting a little more involved until this point now. Now I'm one of her farmers managers, the market managers at the farm. And I love it.
It's very interesting. It's it's like the energy here is high. It's just not a lot of people. When I first got here, it was dark at night, just pitch black going up Oakland Avenue, which I actually liked because I could see the stars at night, because I could see the stars at night. So riding from here, going up to Highland Park and other places that I was living at the time, I would ride on Oakland Avenue on purpose. Even though I could go up Woodward, I could go down other streets, I would come down Oakland because it was dark at night. It was just a symphony of crickets and stars in the sky. That left an impression on me.
It's all about sharing with each other. And if people start sharing and trading, and maybe I could walk to Maya's house and get something from Maya's grandma, and Maya can do the same in return. I feel like if people start doing that, then it would really bring their name out as a North End.
And then I feel like that eventually should turn into like small businesses in the North End. Like they can eventually turn whatever their talent is into a small business and make sure to do it in their neighborhood, because you probably wouldn't expect to see like a Myers or a Kroger in the North End because it's so small. So why not create your own small business in your own community? That way it can benefit you and the people in your community as well.
It starts with the youth. Like, a lot of people say, okay, the adults, but the adults already have their own mindset right now. So we have to start with kids from I would say 5 to 17. You have to install it into their mindset. You need to, instead of supporting other grocery stores, how about you support your local grocery store or something like that. It starts with the kids. So
the part that I do like is that we're rectifying that disconnection. We're bringing it back together. We're bringing community back together. You know, so in the midst of them talking of gentrification, we are actually having a renaissance over here on the North End and creating a new atmosphere with bridging the generations of people together. So that's the part I really like.
I feel like we're being played in transportation right now real heavy, and that has been something I noticed. Like Auntie D-Dot don't come on Wilbur as often because of that train. Yeah, that shit been moving me, because if I need to get somewhere, you know, even just walking to the choo-choo train is a dramatic, you know, they didn't bring it out to us. So I feel like it's still the neighborhood that ain't been loved by the things that we need to be accessed, you know. It's still got it's still the hood, you know, it's still the hood. So transportation, I guess for me, is a thing.
They have a different type of poverty. When I was poor, but I didn't know I was poor. Here they know they're poor, because you got television, you got the social media. I didn't have nothing. I had a television with one station, Channel 6.
Right.
Okay, it went off at 10 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, I mean, the station.
The signal was gone.
I had a phone that you had to get your ring. You had to get your ring. Your ring, if you got 3 rings and a short, 2 longs and a short, that was your house. But when you pick up the phone, everybody's on the line. You know what I'm saying?
But see, we don't have anything close in Detroit area to shop for our groceries or any of that stuff. We have to go out to the clubs, Sam Clubs, and all these places to get quality food.
Okay. What I do not like is that there are so few opportunities for people who live here. And so that's very troubling to me.
There's a big disconnect with the residents and the people that, between the new people who are coming in and the people who have been here for many years. There's a disconnect that seems to be happening, or that has happened.
I think there's a need for a stronger level of cooperation on the North End. I think that there are, political differences that impede possible empowerment. For real. Like, come on, y'all cut that shit out. Really? Yeah. Really? Come on. Let's get it real clear what we're gonna do, then let's go fucking do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I would say that, for all the listeners, please forgive my French, English, Spanish, explicative, but it's true.
I really don't dislike anything. I think there could be some improvements made in certain areas. There's some, areas that could be cleaned up a little bit more, and so forth. But I really like this neighborhood.
It's the pushing out that is the gentrification. It's the pushing out, and then it's also the disrespect of and not listening to people who live here.
Okay.
We didn't see burned house. I didn't grow up seeing burned houses, or houses where the doors were just left open, or grass growing all wild and stuff, And so that was an eye-opener for me. Then when I had begun to go to the different meetings, I wanted to be nosy. I'm like, okay, well, I'm walking up and down the street. There's a burn house over here, and this is looking like something. So I'll go to the different meetings so I can find out, what's going on and what's happening, the resources. Mm-hmm. And why are there, like, 24 churches or more churches in the North End, and why is the North End in the condition that it's in? So I had a naivete coming in, just because I didn't know I didn't know the history of the North End and why it evolved this way. I've come to find out there's so many different factors.
I don't have any, any inner city, you're gonna have challenges, but the thing is, you're a change maker. You got to get in and see what can you do to make it better. You know, so that's what I do.
I think some more residential development, not too much, but you know, the right amount of development would improve the neighborhood overall.
It's something about the North End. I mean, well, you know, this is kind of where Motown started. You know, it very loosely. It was all this music, this artistic energy that has been here. It's a historic place. You know, you have pictures of the Kennedys driving down Oakland, you know, and people running behind their limo, waving and stuff like that. So this energy, I think that there was even before I was born, there was a particular energy that the people brought to this area, and it's still here. You can feel it. It's a pulse. And people want to be near the pulse because the pulse is what propels you into other areas. So you need that. So the pulse is here. You can feel it. It's palpable. You know, when you walk in to the North End, you can feel the energy change. And now it was kind of going through the 90s and the early 2000s. It was kind of a depressed energy, but it's changing and you can feel it. And to be a part of that is amazing. It's like something you always imagine in your head, like, wow, it can be a utopia, you know? So, and that's what I think we're creating. So that's what it is for me.
I'm born here. I love the North End. That's all I know, you know, so.
I like that that there are people with a lot of energy about you know, and pride of living here. They have histories that they're willing to share, and it makes you look at the space differently. You know, there are lots of open lots, but there's also lots of people who can tell you, oh, that was there, that was there, that was there, and it gives you an insight into what was here, and also the politics of why it was, you know, why it was purposely, you know, destroyed.
Well, I don't think anybody pushes you out. I think you make a conscious decision to leave. Okay, and I think you have to strive for perfection. And it's been my experience being in Detroit. Most black folks here don't believe in perfection. You always think you gotta take the easy way out. You know what I'm saying? So, perfection. I mean, you gotta have perfection, man.
Well, you know, of course, I got to, you know, give homage to Oakland Avenue Urban Farms, yeah, you know, because they playing a big part, you know, in the revitalization of this neighborhood and of this community.